What's up, guys? I'm in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, as you can see back there, hopefully. There we go. Decent view back there. Congratulations to my Boston Celtics. I was able to win, or they were able to win. I was able to win as well because I won on the game last night with that play on the Celtics. They were able to win the NBA Finals as I said they would. At that point, I was able to watch it up here of a group of guys. Fun time. Fun game to watch. Go Celtics. That was a win for me. Unfortunately, I lost on the Red Sox game, which it was a losing play, although Kikuchi did also allow 4 home runs, which certainly didn't help. That was, I think, a little bit out of the ordinary. But whatever. 1-1, slight loss. Really can't keep this up, man. I'm just kind of faltering. Bailey Falter is pitching today. I'm not going to play that game, though, Pittsburgh. Even though Pittsburgh does seem to do pretty badly after Paul Skeens pitches at this point. They tend to get a good game with Skeens pitching, and then after he's done for that game, like, Pittsburgh has won that game, they go into the next game. It seems like they have a Skeens hangover. I don't know what it is, because Falter actually doesn't have bad numbers this year, but he has bad numbers against the Cincinnati Reds, by the way, and he's up against Nick Lodolo, who is a better pitcher, so I don't know. I question that game, though, because the market looks completely in the opposite direction there, so I don't want to do anything with that. I will play the NHL game here, similar to last night. I'm going to be on Florida, minus 130, whatever you can get on this, minus 135. They're up from minus 135 to minus 137 consensus, it looks like, even though they're public with 75% of the tickets. They have 89% of the cash. The line's moving up on them. I think this is it for Edmonton. This is very similar to that basketball game last night where Dallas had won in a blowout to stay alive in Game 4. I think I said Game 5 in yesterday's video by accident, my mistake. Edmonton won in a complete blowout, 8-1 against Florida in Game 4. Edmonton did outplay them in the game, but I think the score was a little bit misleading as far as the other statistics of the game. I don't think it was that lopsided, really, statistically. This moves back to Florida here for Game 5. Florida also doesn't want to go back to Edmonton for Game 6. Florida, I think, is going to be highly motivated off of that really ugly loss. And they have the better goaltender. They're the better team. They're better defensively. So, unfortunately, I don't want it to happen, but I expect Florida to win this. I'm going to play this one on the Florida Panthers, minus 135. We'll move over to Major League Baseball. I do have 2 plays. I think probably the better of the 2 would be the Seattle Mariners. I think this is a good spot and a good pitching matchup for Seattle, even though the market looks against it. Cleveland's dropped from minus 118 to minus 115. This game is in Cleveland, so the line has moved a little bit against Cleveland, but it does look like 53% of the tickets are on the Seattle side and 54% of the cash on Cleveland. I don't know if that's going to flip around at all because both of these teams have been playing well recently, I think. Both of these teams have good records. So, well, Seattle, I guess, is hotter than Cleveland right now. So maybe that's why they might wind up being a little bit of the public side here. Although, again, I see the line actually moving down a little bit on Cleveland, so those percentages might not be totally accurate. But I think both of these teams have pretty good records right now. I think they might both be winning their divisions. Is Seattle winning their division? I don't even know. Let me see. Because they're way ahead right now. Houston is actually up in second place, and they're way below 500. Seattle's just been on a hot streak recently. So both of these teams, pretty good records. Both teams were off yesterday. But Cleveland is returning home from a road trip. So, you know what I like to say about that. I think that it's a bad spot when a team is returning home from a road trip. They tend to get hit with these home distractions, even if they had a day off. Cleveland, they only went to they went to Miami, then Cincinnati, then Toronto, so it was a 3-series road trip. So even though it came back to the state of Ohio for a little bit, I still think that's like kind of a prolonged road trip, so they're returning home from that, so the home distractions should probably come into play here. Seattle, on the other side, they're leaving home to start a road trip, which tends to be a positive. You tend to get a team that's focused, especially if they're going up against a team that's leading their division that has a good record like Cleveland. I think we're going to get focus out of Seattle. Seattle did just get a nice divisional sweep over Texas, but I don't know how much stock they'll put into that, even though Texas are the returning champs. Texas has not been playing well this season, so I don't know. But Seattle's coming off that sweep. But I just think it might be a momentum carrier into this game. So I think it's much more of a focus spot for Seattle starting the road trip. I like to take teams starting a road trip against teams returning home from one, which you tend to get some setups like that when you have these first games of series. So I like all that. And I don't think we need to really look at the bullpens that much because neither team played yesterday, though I actually think Seattle probably has a little bit of the bullpen advantage too. I think their bullpen is a little bit better, if I'm not mistaken, but both bullpens are rested here. And we got Bryce Miller on the mound for Seattle, and I think he's the better pitcher of the two. But not only that, but Cleveland has somehow never faced him before, even though he's been in the league for a little while now. Somehow, Cleveland's hitters have never seen him before. So I think that gives us an extra edge with Bryce Miller because he's a pretty proven pitcher at this point. He's a pretty good pitcher. He's got good numbers, good stuff, and these Cleveland hitters haven't seen him before, so that could be an extra edge to Miller with Cleveland having to spend a couple of times through the lineup trying to actually figure him out. So I think we got that advantage for Miller here. Miller's got a 3.48 ERA, 0.98 WHIP this year. That's all good. 80 to 24 strikeout walk ratio. That's pretty good too. 82 and 2/3. And he's only allowed 57 hits. He's been really difficult to hit. Even though he has given up 12 home runs. So that's a little bit bad. But the rest of his stats are quite good all across the board. Strikeout numbers a little bit below 1 per inning. That's still pretty good. Not allowing a lot of walks. Really. Control, not horrible, and a lot of innings pitched. He goes pretty deep into games, which is also a good sign. So I like all that. And then on the other side, Tristan McKenzie is pitching for Cleveland. I think he's pretty clearly the worst of these two pitchers here. He's started to struggle. I think he was doing well earlier in the season, but he's at a 4.1 ERA now, 1.41 WHIP. That is a high WHIP, allowing close to 1.5 base runners per inning. I mean, that's going to get you into trouble when you're doing that. He's started to struggle. He's got a 65 to 38 strikeout walk ratio this year, 38 walks in 68 innings. That is incredibly high, even though he's only allowed 58 hits, so he hasn't been that easy to hit. But speaking of home runs, he's also allowed 14 long balls, so that's worse than Miller. So I don't think there's anything that you can look at any way that you can look at these stats and find anything that would tell you that Miller is not the better pitcher of these two, and he's in the better situation because Cleveland hasn't seen him before. Meanwhile, McKenzie against Seattle's hitters, they've seen him a little bit, 10 for 35 off him. So, 35 at bat sample size. It's a slightly small sample size, but Seattle's hitters are 10 for 35 off him with a double, 6 home runs. A lot of home runs, 16 RBIs, and a 10-8 strikeout walk ratio. That's a 286 batting average, which is somewhat high, but 1,247 OPS. So McKenzie really has struggled against them. So I think this lines up nicely. You got the situation in the starting pitching matchup, and the advantage in the starting pitching matchup. And I think Seattle might have the bullpen edge too. So every edge goes to Seattle here, in my opinion. And you can take them at plus 104. And the market doesn't even seem to be totally in agreement with me. I'm doing it. I'll take Seattle plus 104. And then the final game I'm going to take will be to take the Milwaukee Brewers at Anaheim. So this is kind of a weird situation. Oh, hang on a second, because maybe I should have just rested my phone there anyway. I'm recording on my phone, but I do have my laptop in front of me. My laptop's webcam is old and not as good, and I don't want to deal with trying to use it, really. So Anaheim, I'm going to fade Anaheim here. Anaheim returned home from a road trip, actually, in their most recent game, which was yesterday, to start the series against the Brewers. But it was only a road trip that took them to Arizona and then to San Francisco, so they didn't really go far. They came home and didn't really suffer the distractions and had a win over the Brewers, which is a big win. I mean, Anaheim's been struggling, and Milwaukee's leading their division, so big win for the Angels. But what can you really take away from it? Well, Milwaukee had Carlos F. Rodriguez starting, who was the guy that I mentioned. He's new to the league. He's a guy with like a deep pitching arsenal, but he has struggled in his first 2 starts, man. And he did last night. He just hasn't been that good. And Anaheim won behind Zach Plesac, even though he only had 1 strikeout in the game. He was a pitcher who was formerly on Cleveland. I think he's been out of the league for a bit now. He came back and did pretty well. Maybe he was pumped up for that game. So situationally, and the pitching matchup there wasn't that bad for Anaheim, and Anaheim was able to actually get it done. But Anaheim used more of their bullpen yesterday a little bit. Each team used 3 relievers, but Anaheim used theirs for more pitches, I think slightly, and they used their better pitchers. They used the back end of their bullpen. Their bullpen, I don't even think is that great, but they used the back end of it yesterday. A couple of their big hold men and Estevez to get the save, close out the game. Now I think Milwaukee's going to be in a bounce-back spot after that. That's an ugly loss. Milwaukee's a good team. They're favored on the road, which gets a little bit dangerous maybe, but the market looks like it's on them, even though they are public, because of course they're going to be. They're the Milwaukee Brewers. Everybody knows they have a pretty good offense. They have a pretty good record. They're up from -120 to -135, though, with 93% of the tickets, 98% of the cash. So it looks like the money is coming in on the same side as the public in this one. Milwaukee, the road favorite. So you do have to lay a little bit of a price for it, but I like it. Like I said, I think this is going to be a bounce-back spot. I think you can explain why Anaheim was able to win last night. Now Anaheim's, I think, in the worst spot here, in the worst pitching matchup. They could be in a letdown spot a little bit after that. In Milwaukee, you could see show up focused. They don't want to lose the series to Anaheim. They don't want to lose 2 games to this bad Anaheim team. Griffin Canning is pitching for Anaheim. He's been pretty bad this season. 4.76 ERA, 1.33 WHIP. Nothing to like about any of that, really. He's got 50 strikeouts and 27 walks and 75 2/3. So the walk number actually isn't that bad, but he doesn't come in and blow people away. 74 hits allowed, that's not that bad. But still, all of that considered, I mean, those walk numbers don't look that bad, but his whip is still pretty bad, so I guess they aren't that great. So that's what we can say about Canning. And versus Milwaukee, we actually don't have really much history to work with here. They only have one guy who's seen him before, which is Joey Ortiz. He's 0 for 3 off him with a strikeout, so that's not great. So Canning is actually unfamiliar to Milwaukee's hitters, but I think he's pretty clearly actually the worst of these 2 pitchers. He's been in the league for a while and just hasn't really been a very impressive pitcher, whereas on the other side, you're going to get Tobias Myers from Milwaukee, and he's a rookie, I believe, came into the league earlier this season, and he hasn't been pitching badly. He's been getting the job done well enough with a 3.76 ERA, 1.16 WHIP. That's not that bad. 36 strikeouts and 40 2/3. A little bit of a low strikeout rate. Yeah, he's striking. Actually, yeah, literally. Get these unintended puns. 36 strikeouts and 14 walks and 40 2/3. 14 walks isn't that great. That strikeout walk ratio isn't that great, but he's been keeping men off the base pass because they haven't been able to hit him that well. Where he's allowed 33 hits and 40 2/3. That's not too bad. That walk number just has to get down a little bit, but he's been decently successful this season, so I like that. And of course, Anaheim has never seen him before, and Anaheim's lineup struggles anyway, and they're up against Tobias Myers, a young pitcher, has okay stuff who they haven't seen before, so that could be an advantage to Myers early on, even though, yeah, you could argue Canning has a little bit of an edge against Milwaukee, too, because they haven't seen him, but I think that we're going to give the edge to Milwaukee in this matchup, and I'm going to play it, although I think it's the weakest of those 3 plays, but that's going to do it for me, man. So that's going to be, I'm going to split that bet, actually. Yeah, I will go full game on it. I don't really see that much of a reason to take the bullpens out of the equation on that one. Milwaukee, -1.5 run line, +122 is what you can get it at, and split the bet half and half with Milwaukee, -138, because it is a bit of a price, so I'm going to split those 2 with half the money on each. So those plays, again, Milwaukee, -1.5, +122, and -138. Seattle Mariners, +104. And Florida Panthers, -135. Let's get it. Peace.